The Battle of Mu'tah marked the first military engagement of Khalid bin Waleed Raziallahu Anhu after accepting Islam, and it was a defining moment in Islamic military history. Taking place in the year 8 AH near the town of Mu'tah, east of the Jordan River, this battle was initiated when the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ sent a letter to the governor of Busra under the Byzantine Empire inviting him to Islam. The envoy carrying the letter was unjustly killed. As a response to this violation of diplomatic law, the Prophet ﷺ sent a force of 3,000 Muslim soldiers to confront the Byzantine-backed Arab Christian forces. The Prophet ﷺ appointed 3 commanders to lead the army in succession if any of them were martyred: first Zayd bin Haritha Raziallahu Anhu, then Ja'far ibn Abi Talib Raziallahu Anhu, and finally Abdullah ibn Rawaha Raziallahu Anhu. As the Muslim army reached Mu'tah, they were shocked to discover the overwhelming size of the opposing force, which was reportedly over 200,000 strong. Despite this massive disadvantage, the Muslim army chose to stand and fight bravely in the name of Allah. The battle began with fierce combat. Zayd bin Haritha Raziallahu Anhu was the first to fall as he carried the banner of Islam. Ja'far ibn Abi Talib Raziallahu Anhu then took the flag and continued fighting until both his arms were cut off. Even in that condition, he held the banner between his chest and what was left of his arms, eventually falling as a martyr. Abdullah ibn Rawaha Raziallahu Anhu then took the flag but was also martyred after fighting courageously. With the 3 appointed leaders martyred, the Muslim army was momentarily in confusion. The companions suggested that Khalid bin Waleed Raziallahu Anhu take command, although this was his first battle as a Muslim. He accepted the leadership and quickly reorganized the troops. Using extraordinary battlefield tactics, he began to change the course of the fight. Khalid Raziallahu Anhu used defensive formations, strategic withdrawal, and surprise flank attacks. His clever strategy confused the Byzantine forces into believing that Muslim reinforcements had arrived. During the fierce combat, Khalid bin Waleed Raziallahu Anhu broke 9 swords in his hand, showing his unmatched courage and strength. He skillfully led the Muslims back to safety without the enemy pursuing them further. This brilliant retreat was not a defeat but a tactical success, as Khalid preserved the lives of thousands of companions against impossible odds. When the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ received the news, he praised Khalid and gave him the honorable title Saifullah, the Sword of Allah. The Battle of Mu'tah was a turning point. It demonstrated that the Muslims could confront superpowers like Byzantium with courage, faith, and intelligence. For Khalid bin Waleed Raziallahu Anhu, it was the beginning of a legendary military career. His leadership, quick thinking, and fearlessness won him not only the respect of the companions, but also the lifelong blessing of being called Allah's sword, a title no one else has ever received. The Battle of Yarmouk was one of the most intense and critical battles in early Islamic history, fought shortly after the passing of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ during the Caliphate of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq Raziallahu Anhu. This battle was part of the larger Ridda Wars, also known as the Wars of Apostasy, which were launched to bring back tribes that had broken away from Islam after the Prophet's death. The most dangerous of these was the rebellion led by Musaylima, a false prophet who claimed prophethood in the region of Yamama. Musaylima had gathered a large following and an army said to be over 40,000 strong. His lies and manipulation convinced many weak-hearted tribes to support him, posing a direct threat to the unity and future of the Muslim Ummah. Caliph Abu Bakr Raziallahu Anhu, realizing the seriousness of the situation, prepared an army and appointed Khalid bin Waleed Raziallahu Anhu. Khalid, known for his bravery, discipline, and deep love for Islam, accepted the mission without hesitation. When the 2 armies met in the plain of Yamama, it became immediately clear that the battle would be unlike any other. The Muslim army, composed of seasoned Muhajir and Ansar fighters, as well as new converts, initially struggled against the strong resistance put up by Musaylima's forces. The early stages of the battle were chaotic and bloody. Many Hufaz, those who had memorized the Quran, were martyred, causing deep concern among the Muslim leadership. Seeing the difficulty, Khalid bin Waleed Raziallahu Anhu quickly regrouped his troops and divided them into structured units based on their tribes and command. He gave inspirational speeches and reminded them that this battle was not just a fight for land, but a war to protect the truth of Islam and the finality of Prophet Muhammad's message. With renewed strength and organization, the Muslims fought back with extraordinary courage. A pivotal moment came when Khalid bin Raziallahu Anhu, the same man who had once killed Hamza Raziallahu Anhu before becoming Muslim, struck down Musaylimah with his spear. This was followed by another Muslim cutting him down completely, ending the false prophet's life. With their leader dead, Musaylimah's followers panicked and began to flee, and the Muslim forces took control of Yamama. The victory came at a heavy cost. Thousands of Muslims were martyred, many of them Quran memorizers. This battle led to Caliph Abu Bakr's decision to compile the Quran in written form to preserve it forever. The Battle of Yarmouk is remembered not only for the military brilliance of Khalid bin Waleed Raziallahu Anhu, but also for the sacrifice of so many companions who gave their lives to protect the truth of Islam. It was a hard-fought triumph that restored the strength and unity of the Islamic State at a very fragile time. The Battle of Ulais was one of the bloodiest and most powerful victories led by Khalid bin Waleed Raziallahu Anhu during the early conquests of the Muslim army in Iraq. This battle took place after the Muslims had already faced and defeated several Persian forces. Khalid was leading a campaign in Iraq which at the time was under the control of the mighty Sassanid Persian Empire. The Persians, determined to stop the advance of the Muslims, gathered a massive army composed not only of their own troops, but also large numbers of Arab Christian tribes who had allied with them. As Khalid bin Waleed Raziallahu Anhu moved forward, he received intelligence that the Persians were regrouping near the river Ulais. They were heavily armed, numerous in size, and confident in their strength. Khalid was not a man to fear large numbers. He trusted in Allah's help and knew that courage, faith, and smart tactics could defeat even the strongest of enemies. He led his army to Ulais and prepared for a major confrontation that would once again test the spirit of the believers. Before the battle began, Khalid stood in prayer and made a deep, emotional dua to Allah. He asked Allah for a great victory, for strength against the enemies of Islam, and for a battle that would be remembered in history. Some narrations mention that he even asked Allah that the blood of the disbelievers flow like a river. This heartfelt prayer came from a place of intense belief, especially as he was fighting forces that were not only against Islam, but also brutally oppressive to the people under their rule. When the battle started, the fighting was fierce and bloody. The enemy came in waves trying to crush the Muslims with their strength and numbers. But Khalid bin Waleed Raziallahu Anhu inspired his soldiers with his leadership and personal bravery. He would ride directly into the heat of battle, slashing through the enemy ranks and shouting the takbir. His presence gave the Muslims courage, and fearlessly they pushed forward. The enemy lines began to break under the pressure of Khalid's tactical brilliance and the Muslims' determination. Eventually, the Muslim forces completely overwhelmed the Persian Christian coalition. The defeat was so devastating that the river of Ulais reportedly ran red with the blood of the fallen. The Muslims had won a crushing victory, and news of this battle spread quickly across the land, shaking the confidence of the Persian Empire and terrifying their remaining allies. The Battle of Ulais was more than just a military win. It was a statement that no force, no matter how great, could stand against a people who relied on Allah and fought for his cause. Khalid bin Waleed Raziallahu Anhu once again proved that strategy, courage, and firm belief could change the balance of power in the world. This battle paved the way for further Muslim victories in Iraq and weakened the Persian hold on the region permanently. Battle of Yarmouk, Khalid bin Waleed Raziallahu Anhu. The Battle of Yarmouk stands as one of the greatest military victories in the history of Islam and one of the most brilliant achievements of Khalid bin Waleed Raziallahu Anhu. It was a monumental clash between the Muslim army and the powerful Byzantine Empire, which was one of the two superpowers of the time. This battle took place in the year 15 AH 63 near the Yarmouk River, along the borders of modern-day Syria and Jordan. The outcome of this battle would determine the future of the Muslim presence in the Levant, including Syria, Palestine, and beyond. The Byzantine Emperor Heraclius had grown increasingly worried about the rising strength of the Muslims in Syria. In response, he gathered a massive army said to be over 200,000 strong, composed of heavily armed Roman soldiers, local Arab Christian tribes, and other allied forces. Their aim was to completely crush the Muslim army and push Islam out of the region. The Muslims, under the leadership of Khalid bin Waleed Raziallahu Anhu, had only around 30,000 to 40,000 soldiers, a fraction of the Byzantine force. Yet they were unified by faith, courage, and discipline. Khalid bin Waleed Raziallahu Anhu, as always, approached the situation with calmness and brilliant strategic thinking. He knew that a direct clash with the larger force could be dangerous, so he used clever battlefield arrangements. He restructured the Muslim army into tight and mobile units, kept a cavalry reserve ready for sudden strikes, and placed archers and infantry in positions that allowed for flexible movement. He studied the terrain and chose the battlefield in a way that the enemy's numbers would become difficult to manage. When the battle began, it lasted for 6 full days. Every day was filled with intense fighting, with the Byzantines attacking in large waves. Khalid used hit-and-run tactics, quick cavalry charges, and fake retreats to confuse and tire out the enemy. At one point, the situation became critical when parts of the Muslim line began to weaken, but Khalid rushed in personally and reorganized the troops, giving them renewed morale. He even called upon the Muslim women in the camp to chant takbir and shame any men who tried to retreat, reigniting the fighting spirit of the warriors. On the final day, Khalid launched a full-scale counterattack. His cavalry swept around the enemy's flanks and the Muslim infantry advanced with determination. The Byzantine army was driven toward the cliffs and the river, where thousands fell and drowned. The crushing defeat of the Byzantines was so complete that it marked the end of their power in the region. The Muslims gained control of Greater Syria, including Damascus, Homs, and Palestine. The Battle of Yarmouk was a turning point in world history. It showed that the Muslims, though fewer in number, could overcome even the most powerful empires with strong faith, unity, and wise leadership. Khalid bin Waleed, Raziallahu Anhu, proved once again why he was called the Sword of Allah. His tactics in Yarmouk are still studied in military academies today for their brilliance and effectiveness. Conquest of Damascus, Khalid bin Waleed Raziallahu Anhu. The conquest of Damascus was a significant moment in the Islamic expansion under the leadership of Khalid bin Waleed Raziallahu Anhu. Damascus, the capital of Syria and one of the oldest cities in the world, was a jewel of the Byzantine Empire. It was rich in culture, trade, and history, and capturing it would be a major victory for the Muslims. The conquest took place around 14 AH 635 CE during the reign of Caliph Umar ibn al-Khattab, Raziallahu Anhu. Though the city was heavily fortified and defended by a large Byzantine force, it was no match for the courage, strategy, and discipline of the Muslim army led by Khalid bin Waleed. After the victory at Yarmouk, the Muslims turned their attention to Damascus. The city had strong walls, guarded gates, and a large population of Roman soldiers and Christian Arab allies. The Byzantine commander inside the city was confident that the Muslims would not be able to breach its defenses. Khalid, however, approached the situation with deep wisdom and military skill. Instead of launching a full attack immediately, he decided on a strategic siege, surrounding the city from all sides, cutting off supplies and launching smaller attacks to test weaknesses in the defenses. The siege lasted several weeks. During this time, the Muslims maintained strong discipline, never harming the civilians and respecting the churches and markets outside the walls. The people inside Damascus began to fear the Muslim army, not because of cruelty, but because of their high moral character, courage, and unity. While the enemy expected only bloodshed, the Muslims showed patience, fairness, and justice, even during war. Khalid bin Waleed Raziallahu Anhu, after studying the structure of the city, planned a brilliant night operation. He sent several units to attack different gates of Damascus simultaneously to confuse the defenders. Meanwhile, he personally led a special unit to sneak through a lesser guarded gate by using ladders and scaling tools. The operation was swift, silent, and successful. Khalid and his men entered the city at night without alerting the entire Byzantine garrison. Once inside, he quickly opened the gates for the rest of the army. As dawn broke, the Muslim army had already taken control of large parts of the city. The Byzantine commanders panicked and requested a peaceful surrender through another Muslim commander, Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah, Raziallahu Anhu, who had entered from a different gate. Abu Ubaidah accepted their surrender under a treaty, promising protection for the civilians, their churches, and their wealth. Although Khalid had already entered the city by force, he respected the peaceful agreement made by his fellow commander, showing true Islamic unity and discipline. This event reflected not only the military skill of Khalid bin Waleed Raziallahu Anhu, but also the Islamic principles of justice and mercy. No civilian was harmed, and the religious sites of Christians were protected. Many people in Damascus, impressed by the noble character of the Muslims, later accepted Islam. The conquest of Damascus was not just a military achievement, but a moral and spiritual victory that would open the door for Islam in the heart of the Byzantine Empire. The Desert March to Byzantines, Khalid bin Waleed Raziallahu Anhu. Among the most legendary military feats in the history of warfare is the famous Desert March of Khalid bin Waleed Raziallahu Anhu, a maneuver that demonstrated not only his unmatched courage but also his genius in strategy and endurance. This event took place during the early phase of the Muslim campaign against the Byzantine Empire, around the time when the Muslim forces were preparing to liberate the lands of Syria from Roman rule. The Byzantines had fortified key routes, expecting Muslim armies to approach from the well-known paths. But Khalid did something unexpected. He chose to lead his entire army through one of the most dangerous and waterless deserts to outflank the Byzantine positions and arrive where they least expected. The desert he chose to cross was the Syrian desert, a lifeless and burning plain that stretched for hundreds of miles without water, food, or shade. The normal route from Iraq to Syria was guarded by Byzantine forces, so Khalid devised a plan to cross through this deadly terrain and arrive behind enemy lines. It was a bold and almost suicidal decision. No army in history had ever attempted to take such a route, but Khalid was not just a warrior. He was a man of vision, bravery, and deep reliance on Allah. To prepare for this brutal journey, Khalid took extraordinary measures. He gathered extra water and stored it in the bellies of camels, then deprived some camels of water for days so they would drink in large amounts, turning them into living water containers. These camels were later sacrificed one by one to provide water to the soldiers when the supply ran low. He also timed the march to travel mostly at night, avoiding the deadly heat of the day. His understanding of terrain, weather, and movement made this impossible journey become a miracle of strategy and faith. The army marched for nearly 5 days through this barren wasteland. Many of the men were pushed to their physical limits. The camels fell, the supplies dwindled, and the soldiers were tested with hunger and thirst. But they kept moving forward, driven by the strength of Khalid's leadership and their unshakable belief in the mission. He inspired them with reminders of Jannah, honor, and their duty to spread truth and justice. When they finally emerged from the desert, the Byzantines were shocked. They had no idea that an army could come from that direction. The Muslim forces attacked suddenly and decisively, catching the enemy completely off guard. This surprise move led to a series of Muslim victories across Syria and eventually played a role in the success of battles like Undefeated and Yarmouk. The Desert March is remembered not for the bloodshed, but for the endurance, trust in Allah, and incredible leadership it required. Khalid bin Waleed Raziallahu Anhu showed the world that no obstacle is too great when a leader has courage, strategy, and divine reliance. His march through the desert remains one of the most respected military maneuvers in world history and a glowing example of what faith-powered leadership can achieve. A Battle of Arjunadain, Khalid bin Waleed Raziallahu Anhu. The Battle of Arjunadain was one of the earliest and most decisive battles between the Muslim forces and the Byzantine Empire, fought in the year 13 AH 634 CE. It was led by Khalid bin Waleed Raziallahu Anhu and marked a major step in the Islamic conquest of the Levant, taking place in Palestine, near the location of modern-day Beit Shemesh. This battle showcased the brilliance, speed, and discipline of the Muslim army against one of the world's most powerful empires. For many historians, it was the battle that shattered Byzantine confidence in the region and opened the gates for future Muslim victories, including the conquests of Damascus and Jerusalem. At this time, the Muslims had already established dominance in parts of Iraq and were now expanding into Syria and Palestine. The Byzantine Empire, threatened by these swift gains, began to organize a large military force consisting of Roman soldiers, Arab Christian tribes, and other regional allies. Their goal was to wipe out the Muslim presence and reassert Roman authority. The Muslim army, though smaller in number, was made up of committed warriors led by Khalid bin Waleed Raziallahu Anhu, whose reputation for victory and fearless leadership spread fear among enemies. Before the battle, Khalid made sure his army was fully prepared. He reorganized the troops, assigned clear roles to commanders, and gave fiery speeches reminding the soldiers of their purpose, not for land or power, but for the spread of justice and the worship of Allah alone. His leadership was not just military, but spiritual. The Muslim army was unified in purpose, highly mobile and deeply motivated. As the battle began, Khalid Raziallahu Anhu launched a series of calculated attacks. He used his cavalry to strike at the flanks of the Byzantine army, while the infantry held strong in the center. The Byzantines, confident in their numbers and armor, expected an easy victory. But they were quickly caught off guard by the discipline and tactical movement of the Muslim forces. Khalid constantly changed the rhythm of the battle, creating confusion in the enemy ranks and preventing them from mounting a coordinated response. One of Khalid's strengths was timing. At the perfect moment, he ordered a massive charge that broke through the center of the Roman lines. The Muslims, shouting takbir and moving like a single body, began to push the enemy back. Panic spread among the Byzantines. Their formation collapsed, and many tried to flee, only to be pursued and defeated. The victory at Arjunadian was complete. Thousands of Roman soldiers were killed while the Muslim losses were far fewer. This battle not only proved the strength of the Muslim military under Khalid's leadership, but also established a deep fear in the hearts of the Byzantines. It marked the beginning of the end of Roman rule in the southern Levant and gave the Muslims control over large parts of Palestine. The Battle of Arjunadian remains a symbol of what sincere faith, courage, and wise leadership can accomplish. Khalid bin Waleed Raziallahu Anhu, through this victory, showed the world that even the mightiest empires can fall before an army that fights with the conviction of truth and the help of Allah.